You think your English is advanced, but are you sure? Because if you don't know these 12 grammar rules, you're probably not there yet. If you master these rules, you will sound fluent, clear, and confident every time you speak English. So, let's find out what these 12 rules are. You're about to learn the grammar rules that most students never master. And if you want daily support to reach an advanced C1 level, then I created Daily Quick Fix. Okay, you spend 15 minutes every day to build your grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and listening to an advanced C1 level. And there's a link in the description if you want to join me there. Okay, let's go with rule number 1, which is the stative verbs rule. Okay, so here's the thing. Most verbs describe an action. Yeah, when I was a kid, we called them doing words because it's like an action. Yeah, you do an action. But not all verbs are actions. Some verbs describe states. For example, have, know, believe, love, want, need, mean. Okay, these are not things that you can just do, they're states. Okay, we can't say like, hey, what are you gonna do tomorrow? Oh, tomorrow, yeah, I'm believing tomorrow. No, okay, they're states, they're not actions. And when we have stative verbs, the rule is that we must use them in the simple tenses, not continuous tenses. So you can talk about them in the past, the present, and the future, but they must be a simple tense, not a continuous tense like I was having a car, but a simple tense like I had a car. Okay? Not she is knowing the answer. Know is a stative verb, so she knows the answer. One that my little daughter often says is, "What are you meaning?" Sounds cute, but it's wrong. What she wants to say is, "What do you mean?" Okay, by the way, if you're new here, I'm Greg. I make grammar and British pronunciation simple so that you can reach an advanced level of English fluency. And I'm not going to go into too much detail with each of these 12 points in this video. I want to keep it concise, but I will go into more detail in that PDF. I'll give you more examples and also a test so that you can check that you have understood and mastered all the grammar points that I mention in this video. So there you go, it's free. You can click up there to get it. You can scan that code there too. And there's a link in the description. All right, number 2 is the present perfect or the past. This is a topic that so many students are confused with, even upper intermediate students. Now, again, it's a big topic, but the very, very simple rule is that we use the present perfect, like I have lived, when something started in the past and is still true now. For example, I have lived here for 5 years. Okay? This action started in the past, but it's still true now, because I still live here. However, we use the past simple, like I lived in France for 1 year, to talk about something that both started and finished in the past. Okay? That is totally in the past and it's not connected to the present. The third rule is articles at an advanced level. Yes, so I'm talking about specifically the word the and knowing when to use it and when not to use it. And again, the very basic rule for this is that when we are talking about things in general, we don't use the, like bananas are yellow. This is just a general fact. But when we're talking about something very specific, like the bananas in my kitchen are green, here we're talking about specific bananas, so we use the. Now, another way that we use the or don't use the is when we are talking about a place like a church, a hospital, a prison, the university, all these places. You can either go there for the purpose of that building. So if you go to church, you go to pray. But if you go on holiday somewhere, maybe you just want to visit the church in the town. And there you go, you probably heard me when I was giving those examples, but she went to church without the means she's praying, okay? She went for the purpose of that building. But if we say she went to the church, there, maybe she's just visiting, or she's just taking a piece of paper to give to the priest or whatever. Yeah, but she's going not for the main purpose of the church. Okay, so as I mentioned, it works for hospital. Like she is in hospital means she is ill. She is in the hospital. Well, maybe she works there or she's visiting someone. She's in prison. She's in the prison. She's going to prison. She's going to the prison. They all work in the same way too. Okay, the fourth rule is something called cleft sentences. Oh, I really do not like grammar jargon like the cleft sentences. What the heck is a cleft sentence? Well, I'll tell you what a cleft sentence is. It's basically a sentence that really accentuates or highlights the most important part of the idea of the sentence. So here's an example. A normal sentence would be this: Greg helped me with my English. All right. Easy. But how about this? It was Greg who helped me with my English. Here we are emphasizing or highlighting Greg, okay? The most important part of the sentence. Okay, here's another example. I liked her pronunciation. We could say it was her pronunciation that I liked. Here we are just highlighting the most important part of the sentence, which is her pronunciation. Okay, and this can just help your speaking and your writing just sound more dramatic, more expressive, and just more focused. Okay, right, remember there's a lot to learn in this video, but that free PDF gives you a full summary of each rule with a deeper explanation, extra examples, and a test. So don't forget to download that free PDF. Okay, rule number 5 is verb forms in conditionals. Conditionals always feels to me like something that no matter how much I teach it, people still make mistakes with it. But it's not that complicated. I have a video up there which explains all the conditionals very, very clearly and concisely. But conditionals are basically about two parts of a sentence, okay? The condition and the result if that condition is true. You just need to know which verb form to use in each part of the sentence. Okay, we have different types of conditionals: 0, first, second, third. But third conditional is one that most students have difficulties with. This is where we're talking about the impossible past. For example, if I had known, I would have gone. But many upper intermediate students also make mistakes with the second conditional, where we're talking about an unreal present. Like if she were taller, she could be a model. Okay, and the first conditional, like if it's sunny, we will go to the beach. Or the 0 conditional, if you heat water, it boils. They're rules that most people are okay with, but if you want an advanced level of English, you really need to be able to use the correct verb forms for each of the conditionals. And if you want a really advanced level, then mixed conditionals. As I said, you can watch that video up there and I talk about it all there. Okay, rule number 6 is about modal verbs in the past. So modal verbs basically let us show opinion or possibility or regret, all sorts of things. They're very useful, but they act a little bit differently when we use them in the past. For example, you should call. This is using the modal verb should in the present. And we use should to give advice. But if we use it in the past, the structure changes a little bit and it kind of changes the meaning too. You should have called. You should have called. Okay, so should plus have plus the past participle. And we use this to kind of give advice about the past. So kind of useless, but yeah, I kind of use it to express regret. Okay, here's another example. He must live alone. Here there's a strong possibility that this is true, but in the past, she must have taken the wrong bus. Again, here we're showing strong possibility, but talking about a past situation, and we use that structure: must, have, and the past participle. Okay, rule number 7 that you should know if you want an advanced level of English is inversion. Now, inversion changes the word order, it inverts the word order for style and emphasis. And we often use this for formal or dramatic purposes. So, look at this example. I have never seen such chaos. Now, if we want to be dramatic and really put emphasis to the word never, then we can put never at the beginning of the sentence. But you need to be careful, because that will change the word order a little bit in the rest of the sentence. So instead of I have never seen such chaos, we say never have I seen such chaos. Another example is this. Instead of he forgot and he also lied, we can say not only did he forget, but he also lied. Now, the thing that students often make mistakes with when they're trying to use inversion is the word order. Now, just focus on the word order after the little word that we put at the beginning, because the word order looks like a question. Never have I seen? Have I seen? That's a question. That looks like a question. It's not a question, but it looks like a question. Not only did he forget, okay, did he forget? That's the same word order as a question, even though this sentence is not a question. Okay, if you remember that, you will be in a good place. But I also have a video on that topic that you can watch up there. Okay, now, hey, don't forget to keep track of how many of these rules you know and how many you don't, and leave a comment afterwards. I really want to see how advanced your current level of English is. Okay, you ready for number 8? Let's go. Relative clauses. Specifically, when to drop that or who. For example, we can say, the woman who I met yesterday was kind. The woman that I met yesterday was kind. Or, the woman I met yesterday was kind. They're all correct, but sometimes it's not possible to remove that. Sometimes we must use that. There are two things here, really. When you can delete that, and you do drop that, it helps you speak more quicker. You sound great, you sound natural, and you sound like most native speakers when they're speaking English. Because generally, if we are able to delete a word when we're speaking, we normally delete the word because we want to speak more quickly. So that's great. And the other thing is that if you try to delete the word that, but you actually need it, then you can cause confusion in that sentence. So, again, I talk about this in much more detail in that video there. Put a link to these videos in the description, but as I said before, you get a much more in-depth explanation of these rules in the PDF. Okay, number 9 is ellipsis. Yeah, again, it's another grammar jargon word, and basically, native speakers want to avoid repetition. Okay, as I said before, we want to speak using as few words as possible. We want to give the message as quickly as possible and then go and have a cup of tea. So why do we want to repeat a word when it's obvious what we mean? Well, we don't, and that's why we say things like this. He plays football better than I do. Okay, we don't need to say he plays football better than I play football. It's just repetition, it's not necessary. So instead, we can just say, than I do. I went to the party, and she did too. Okay, we don't need to say, I went to the party, and she went to the party too. No, if it's repetition and it's obvious what we're talking about, we can just use do or did to avoid that repetition. If we're talking about a modal verb like can or should or will, then we can't use do, but instead we repeat the modal verb like this. I can't cook, but my brother can. We don't need to repeat cook, but in these situations we don't use do or did, but we have to use can, will, should, won't. And there you go. It saves time and it's much more advanced. The 10th rule then is regarding gerunds and infinitives. Now, you know that some verbs take a gerund after and some take an infinitive. How do we know which to use? Well, most people guess, but there is a very, very simple rule that you can follow. It doesn't work every time, but it works a lot of the time. And not many people know it. So here's the very simple explanation. Think to yourself, are we talking about a plan or an activity? If you're talking about a plan, use the infinitive, like to go, to eat. And if you are talking about an activity, use the gerund, like going, eating. So for example, she enjoys swimming. Swimming is an activity. I remember meeting him. Again, I remember that activity or that experience of meeting that person. But they decided to leave. That's an intention, it's a plan to leave. Or I remembered to lock the door. Okay, I remembered and it was a plan, an intention. I remembered to lock the door. And that one little rule can really help you choose correctly between the gerund or the infinitive. Okay, 2 more to go. Remember, you can either scan that QR code or click the link in the description to get the PDF from today's lesson. And remember to write your number in the comments too, so I can see how many of these rules you knew. All right, number 11, another grammar jargon word for you. Fronting. Fronting for emphasis. Okay, so fronting is when you move a part of the sentence to the front, to the beginning of a sentence. Okay, and you do this to make it more emphatic, okay, or more dramatic. You might think it's similar to a cleft sentence that I talked about earlier. It's similar but not the same, okay, because it doesn't split the sentence like a cleft sentence does. So here's an example. There was a huge cake on the table. Right, this is what we do when we use fronting. We just take one part of the sentence and put it at the beginning, and that's all. So, on the table, there was a huge cake. Okay, it just sounds more dramatic. Okay, I'm sure you'll see this if you read a lot of English in novels, okay? Because it sounds much more dramatic. And on the table, there was a huge cake. Okay, it adds a bit of suspense. Like, on the table, yeah, what happened? Was a huge cake. You see, generally in English, the most important part of a sentence goes at the front. But when we do this fronting, we're kind of adding a bit of suspense, okay? So you have to listen to the whole sentence before you get to the most important part. And that's why it sounds more dramatic. Okay, here's another example. I went to the cinema last night. With fronting, you could say, last night, I went to the cinema. Okay, it's great. You'll see it everywhere. I think now you know it, you will see it in many places, and it just adds that drama to an otherwise ordinary sentence. Okay, number 12 is tenses in reported speech. Again, this is like conditionals in the respect that no matter how much I teach it, I feel like people make mistakes with it at all levels of English. Okay, when you're using reported speech, when you're saying things like, she said that, he told me that, then you need to keep the verb tenses in mind. Okay, I've done a video on this too, but we have to move the tense back one. It's called backshifting, okay? So we have to move the tense back one tense. So if the direct speech is, I've seen her before, we need to make that one tense back. I had, okay? So he said he had seen her before. I will call later. Will goes back to would. Okay, she told me she would call later. We are waiting outside. Are goes back to were. Okay, they explained that they were waiting outside. Now, I want you to do 3 things right now. So number one is leave a comment to tell me how many of these rules you knew. The second thing I want you to do is subscribe, because I've got many more lessons to push you to the advanced C1 level of English. And number three is don't forget your free PDF with all these rules, extra examples, and a test so that you can take your English to an advanced level. And when you've done all that, you can watch that video next, okay? Because if you know the 15 words in that video, your English is excellent. I wonder how many you know. I'll see you there. Bye for now.